This video is about the resource search tool in Lesson Magic by Teaching Solved. In the resource search tool, first you get to select your language that you're teaching, Spanish, English, or French. In the Spanish search and the French search, it asks you to enter the categories in English and in the target language, because it provides better results if you do both. However, you do not have to enter all three categories. In the English search, you can still enter one or more categories, but you only have to enter them in one language. So let's try some searches. So first of all, I want to explain a little bit about why it's set up in terms of vocabulary, language features, and culture. Now, a lot of times the textbooks are set up this way. There's a vocabulary topic, there's some language features, and then there's some culture that all are combined in order to give the students what they need to carry out the tasks. But too often, if we only focus on the vocabulary, the language features, and the culture that's in the chapter, there isn't any time left at the end of the unit to actually do the functions, the tasks that students need to be able to carry out by the end of that unit. And so that's why the vocabulary, language features, and culture are supposed to be building blocks, but they're really not supposed to be the be all end all. So the reason it's set up this way is so that you can take your building blocks that are in your chapter, but use them in a search to find real world materials and materials that are designed for students, but in more of a sense of showing them the kinds of tasks they'll be doing with the language, and not giving them input to be able to do it themselves, and not just giving them explanatory videos about the grammar or about some of the other things in the chapter. So I'm going to go ahead and do a sample search in English so we can see what that would look like. I'm going to put in sports, I'm going to put in past tense, and I'm going to put in for culture, I'm just going to say values. Let's see what comes up. So for sports and past tense, it combines these two topics to give you some real world resources, and then the same thing with past tense and values. And then for the individual topics, it also gives you mostly videos, some infographics, and some semi-contextualized grammar activities about these different topics. So if you find some links that don't return anything, it could just be that there is nothing on that particular area where it's searching for that content. You could try different terms. If you do encounter problems with particular links, please let me know, because I really want to be able to fix the product and make it better and really make it more what you're searching for. Also, if you know of other sites where you think it should be looking for resources that are really good, that have free online resources that aren't hidden behind any kind of login or paywall, please let me know, because I always want to be improving the product and making the search engine the best that it can be for everyone who's using it. So let's see what it found for sports and past tense. History of sport, the origins of 7 popular sports. 3 sports were invented at the YMCA. So these are all past tense things about sports, right? Oh, sports were popularized in order to distract and control the masses, if you want to have them debate something really controversial, right? There are all kinds of things that are in the past tense about sports that come up. And even if a particular article is too difficult, you could always have them just look at the headline and the photo caption, right? A lot of times you can get a whole novice level lesson out of just a headline and a photo caption. So please don't be turned off by the difficulty of some of the real world resources. Vocabulary lessons from ESL Lounge also come up. This one's an intermediate listening sports roundup. Pre-intermediate level, which sports person would say these things, multiple matching. So there's all kinds of activities that come up that you can chain together. So the way I would use this is I would probably start by taking a video or a reading to be the centerpiece of the lesson. And then I would create some pre-reading activities or pre-listening activities using the information in the transcript or in the text. If there are particular words that are crucial that you want them to be able to focus on when they get to the reading or the listening, then it's good to work with those ahead of time, or give them a strategy like listening for the main point, listening for specific information. Those are all good strategies that you can do kind of in every lesson. And then afterwards, rather than just doing comprehension, you can do all kinds of things, like you can do a jigsaw. You can have them work in a small group to find specific information, and then you have them change groups. So each group the second time has one person from each of the first groups, and then they've all read or listened to a different part of it, and then you can have them or two different perspectives, even if you want them to be looking at two different things. But even with everyone doing the same thing, you could have each one looking for an answer to a particular question, and then have them switch groups so that they have one person who looked at each thing, and then they can teach each other. These are all really good activities for ESL and world languages, using these readings. That way, even if something is too long or too difficult, you can have them break it down and help each other with it. And then you don't have to find as many readings and listenings for a lesson as well. So where would you get these materials? Like I said, some of them are real world resources. Some of them are more designed for English learners or Spanish or French learners. And then there are also some videos that break down each of these things separately: sports, past tense, and your culture. For example, conversation videos. This one comes up with sports vocabulary. This one says learn American English pronunciation, syllable stress, contrast. But if you look at the metadata here, it says football in the United States contrasts in many ways. So it's using sports as the example. So some of these are useful for example, pop-up pronunciation or pop-up grammar, to be able to bring that out. So you might find a reading about football, but then you might also want to use this video so that you can do some pop-up pronunciation for example, contrast versus contrast, right? Here's some culture. Let's play ball using cultural themes in the English classroom. Oh, that was a whole webinar. And then there's some task-based teaching activities. So there's all kinds of things. Irregular verbs, swing, hit, and run with a sports theme. So these might be things that you have in your unit that you need to cover anyway, or they might just be things that you might want to do as little pop-up grammar while you're covering the vocabulary topic. But either way, it really helps to integrate everything that's in your unit or everything that you think the students need, and not just kind of go through the unit with vocabulary, grammar, culture, test, right? Vocabulary, grammar, culture, test. And really helps to make these building blocks for what you want them to be able to do. So if you're just doing an input-based lesson, then they're not really building up to producing something. But if you're doing an output-based lesson or an interaction-based lesson, and you're really building them up to being able to talk on their own with a partner or in front of the class, or record a video or do a writing assignment, then you probably want to think about giving them examples of conversations or narrations as part of the videos and readings that they have, so that they have examples for being able to move forward and do it themselves. So some of these sites that come up in the resource search are particularly good for that. Sometimes in the conversation and story videos, sometimes in the related video clips, there are different examples of tasks that might be a little bit beyond the student's level for what they're able to do as accurately as the video, but it doesn't mean they can't do it. So it just means that they're going to be able to take that input and maybe break it down, pause it, right, go over certain things, and then when they go to do it themselves, they can go back and listen again for keywords, phrases that will help them overcome, for example, conversational pauses or talking around things that they don't know. These are all strategies that you can explicitly give them or refer back to if they have already had them earlier in the course, just so that they're able to really connect the input that they're getting with their own output. And something to keep in mind is if they are only ever receiving input in, for example, isolated vocabulary lists, right, then it's going to be harder for them to produce something that's not just isolated vocabulary. So it's important for the input to move from isolated vocabulary to sentence level to connected discourse level, for them to then be able to move from isolated vocabulary to sentence level to connected discourse level. And this is important because a lot of times we think, oh, once the students already have that sentence level, already have a discourse level, all they need is another list of words and they can incorporate it. But that's not actually true, because they wouldn't necessarily know how to use those words, right? They don't necessarily know if these are irregular verbs. They don't necessarily know if they take a certain preposition or if there's a certain collocation, a certain phrase where they're common. There might be idiomatic expressions for them to use these words. And so being able to do a lot of context with the language, whether it's contextualized input, contextualized output. It all helps for their language development in terms of being able to just not just stop at those building blocks, but also combine them into really something that's going to help them achieve the functions of the level that you're wanting them to achieve. And it's hard because the students come in with a bunch of different skills, right? Sometimes they come in with an idea about their learning styles, which is a bit of an outdated concept now, but a lot of times they're really determined to be that they're a visual learner or an auditory learner, right? And so being able to get them to take that and then say, okay, if you think you're a visual learner, great, follow along with the transcript while you're listening, right? And then take the transcript away and listen again. Because being able to move from their most comfortable skill to all of the skills that they need to integrate in order to be a successful language learner and second language user is really important. So all of these materials are not just written, they're not all just video. It's a combination. Sometimes with the videos, you can put on the subtitles. You can also change the language of the subtitles because sometimes, especially in the Spanish and French ones, sometimes it defaults to English subtitles. So you might have to change those a little bit. But being able to give the students the tools that they need to not only explore more resources on their own, but also use the tools that they have during class is very important as well. These materials are intended primarily for in-person classes so that you can take the resources and create a lesson plan to use in class. But for an online class, it would be perfectly appropriate as well if you want to take those links and provide them on a course website or chain them together in a series of slides or a document for them to move through on their own. It just takes a little bit of sort of collating these resources into something that is a little more user-friendly for the student who isn't as able to quickly decide what's a good resource, what's not as relevant as you are. Also, there's a premium option here. If you do have the premium access, you can navigate to your premium folder in order to see what relevant lesson slides already exist. If you have a team account, you can share those files among your team. Otherwise, you can go in and make a copy into your own Google Drive, and you can go ahead and edit from there. So hopefully you can find something in the resource search for your language that will help you develop lesson plans very quickly and efficiently for your students. And please, like I said, I'm looking forward to getting your feedback on the product. I'm always trying to make it better. So thanks so much for using Lesson Magic, and I'll see you soon.